Hi, this is Enrique. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing the tariffs that were recently imposed on Mexico, Canada, and China. So as some of you may know, there were tariffs that were supposed to be starting on February 1st for Mexico 25%, Canada 25%, and China 10%. Now, President Trump has used this as a negotiation tool to be able to curb fentanyl coming into the US and also illegal migrants. Because as all of you may know, there's been a real crisis here in the United States when it comes to fentanyl drug use and migrants coming into this country, which some of them, they're well known to be criminals and possibly even people tied to terrorist organizations. As of today, February 3rd, Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum, and Justin Trudeau, which is the Prime Minister of Canada, also communicated with Trump that they are willing to help out to be able to curb these two things. And so the president has agreed to freeze the tariffs for 30 days. Now, Mexico agreed to send 10,000 troops of their own, the Guardia Nacional, to the Mexican border to be able to avoid all of these issues. Now, we don't know if 30 days is enough to be able to see a change in these types of situations, but we do know that Mexico, with 10,000 troops, should be able to make a dent. I personally have seen over the past month or so more activity as I have crossed the border into Mexico several times, and I have seen more activity on the border going into Mexico from the US. There's been more people checking the vehicles. So it's probably going to get worse. So for any of you viewers out there that are traveling to Mexico, there's a very good chance that you will be searched. And that's going to be a safety measure because they want to make sure that people from the US are not trafficking weapons. Because that's one of the things that Mexico's president has also mentioned to the president here in the United States, that there are illegal weapons. There's weapons that are being transported from the US to Mexico, and those weapons are used by the cartels to cause harm in that country. So both countries will be working together to be able to curb criminal activity. Now, I do want to play some clips here to be able to react to from TikTok. So let's get started.
Is there any chance that Canada or China could also get out of the tariffs after you struck a deal with Mexico?
Well, nobody's out with Mexico. We had a great talk with Mexico, and we had President Sheinbaum is a woman. I like her very much. We've had good relationships, but we have to stop fentanyl from coming in, whether I like somebody or not, and we have to stop the illegal aliens from coming in. I also spoke with Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada, and we had a good talk in the morning, but I did ask him a couple of questions, like, banks aren't allowed to do business in Canada. Canada is very tough. Canada is very, we're not treated well by Canada, and we have to be treated well.
So as you can see, that the president here is using this as a negotiation tool to be able to keep America secure, and also making sure that all of these drugs are not being transported to harm US citizens. Now, going forward, there's a very good chance that after these 30 days have passed, there's a very good chance that Canada is going to go ahead and also increase border security, which they haven't really mentioned too much about that yet. But also, they have to make sure that they help the US, because at the end of the day, the whole North American continent is in danger of criminal activity getting worse. So I think it's very good that the president is actually doing this, because you can't just let criminals run rampant, because what's going to end up happening is all of this is going to filter out, and eventually you're even going to have other countries being affected by this. So the United States does have the upper hand. Now on to our next clip.
So we just found out that apparently the tariffs won't be applied, at least for 30 days. But for those who are fans of American booze, I can tell you we'll be putting those back on the shelves. And the work that was being undertaken to pull them from the shelves is now being reversed in response to the news today.
So as you can see, the Canadian leadership has agreed to not retaliate against this tariff situation, because they have come to an agreement about the 30-day freeze. Now, the thing is we will only hope that this situation can be averted, because most of the sentiment that I'm seeing online about these tariffs is that eventually consumers here in the United States are going to be the ones that are going to be paying the price. Not only for all of the resources that they use coming in from Canada, but also you have people that are a fan of products that come from Mexico as well. You have Mexican beer, and then you have a lot of the produce that's actually produced in Mexico as well. You have avocados and other things that American consumers are used to be able to use on a daily basis. All of that, right now, with the way that things are, people are being impacted by inflation, and on top of that, now they have to worry about paying more for goods. So I think the president knows that if these tariffs are implemented, that it will cause pain in the United States economy, which we all know that in order for this country to be able to move ahead, there will have to be a period where we're all going to have to experience economic pain. And we know that this was coming for many years. The only thing is we didn't know when. And it could be that 2025 could be the year where the American consumer could experience even more pain, as it has in the last 2 years or so, where inflation has gone rampant. So this could actually exacerbate it in the short term, while the government is able to build a good cushion with these tariffs. So let's move on to our next clip here.
Well, now it looks like he is indeed serious, and so now you're seeing the market reaction. But as I say, we have to wait and see what happens in the coming hours and days as to whether this stuff gets imposed. If it does get imposed, it's going to be a very big deal indeed.
If you were a betting man, what would you say?
I don't bet, Kay. I don't bet. But partly because who knows? I mean, to be honest with you, like a lot of people, I wondered, this is such a consequential thing. This is the world's biggest economy. It is basically a kind of free trade area throughout most of North America. If you're imposing tariffs, particularly big tariffs, and 25% is a big tariff, what that does is it means that all of these supply chains, whether it's making cars, whether it's getting oil from Canada and turning it into gasoline in America, all of these things have been able to flow basically freely for decades. If suddenly you're saying there has to be a tariff on basically everything, that's enormous. I mean, we here in the UK, okay, so we have a recent memory of Brexit. Okay, but think about the difference here. So Brexit was something that the UK voted for. Then we had years of negotiation. Then you had the agreement between the UK and the EU, which meant there are no tariffs. So at no point were there actually tariffs between the UK and the rest of the EU. In this case, if it does go ahead, and it's in the next, potentially tomorrow, then you're talking about tariffs instantly, overnight, in a way that we never had, in a far bigger economic area. So it's of enormous consequence.
Yeah, as you can see, these types of tariffs, if they are implemented overnight, it will just wreck the economy in the short term. I also wanted to add that these tariffs are causing a lot of market disruption. So these past couple days, especially after these tariffs were announced, not only did a lot of stocks tank temporarily, but you also had Bitcoin lose about $10,000 of value just like that. So that gives us an indication that these markets, even though they've rebounded somewhat, they still are very susceptible to wild swings when you have uncertainty in these types of situations. Then you also have the Mexican peso, which went ahead and dropped from the 20 pesos per dollar to close to 21. So again, this is the time that you have to be very careful if you are investing in other currencies, because not only can it affect the US markets, but it also can affect Canadian and Mexican currencies as well. And if the president decides to implement tariffs in Europe, as he has mentioned that he probably wants to do it as well, that could also wreak havoc when it comes to the European nations as well. So that's something to be very mindful of, especially if you are the type of person that likes to invest globally. I don't think that the previous administration had the pants to be able to implement something like this. So at the end of the day, they do have to treat the United States as if it was a corporation and protect the interests of this country. This is something that we're just going to have to go and little by little make changes to, because I do think that even though they're talking about a 25% tariff, I don't think that it's going to be for everything. I think that there's going to be different percentages based on different items, but this is just kind of a blanket negotiation. And then later on, I think that as time goes on, I think eventually there will be some tariffs that will be implemented at maybe 25% or even higher, but maybe there will be some items that maybe they can work to negotiate down to a point where maybe instead of 25%, maybe it's only 5% or 10%. But only time will tell, because we are barely at the beginning stages of a negotiation process. Most people are not in favor of having these tariffs happen as consumers, because at the end of the day, it's going to affect their livelihood and their pocketbook in the short term and in the long term as well. So it's going to give people less room to be able to save money for retirement going forward and to be able to invest in other things. So I would like to know, what are your thoughts and opinions about these tariffs? Are you in favor of it? Or do you feel like the government should be able to find other solutions? Please let me know in the comments below. I will continue to provide you videos that I think will make you a better person. Please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.